The best things in your life happen to you as a result of something negative. You realize the door got slammed shut and you got to look for another door. So then I found myself pursuing hostage negotiation.
Welcome to Common Denominator. I'm your host, Moshe Popak. Today's guest is someone who has negotiated in rooms where lives were literally on the line. Former FBI lead hostage negotiator, CEO of the Black Swan Group, and best-selling author of Never Split the Difference, and the full fee agent, Chris Voss. Chris didn't just study negotiation, he lived it. From international kidnappings to high-stakes corporate deals. And today, we're breaking down what most people get wrong about communication. We talk about why clarity can feel like violence and how to deliver it with kindness. If you've ever wanted better results in business, stronger relationships, or more confidence in difficult conversations, this episode is for you.
You guys are going to be at the table again in the future, and everybody's going to remember how it went last time.
Is there fear going through you if you don't get the result, right? The result is what matters, saving the lives of people.
Hostage negotiators are successful slightly more than 90% of the time. Once you start getting close to double digits, things are going to go bad just because that's the universe. And then when that happens, how do you deal with post-traumatic stress growth or post-traumatic stress defeat? The difference between those two really is a choice.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to Common Denominator.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
It's really an honor and a pleasure. I got to say that first, to have you on the show, because I think about the things that people focus on, because I see things as results, right? Yourself as handling negotiations for a very long time on the highest levels. What is it as humans that we have wrong as far as our perception? Where can we change that? Where's the X factor that we could change as far as getting better results on a mass level?
Probably, let me see if I can sort this out. 3 steps. First of all, you got to hear the other side out first. And that has to do with precision listening. You got to listen to what was actually said. Few people are precision communicators, so most of the time people are afraid to say, I didn't understand or I was lost. But they got to make sure that in their head they heard what was being said. I was just on a phone call with the guy that's running my company, and he knew what he was talking about, but there were several things he changed in a pronoun. He used the pronoun her twice, referring to 2 different people each time. Now, he knew who he was referring to. And so in your head, there's a pretty good chance your communication is not that clear. And so the person who's talking to you, they're doing their level best, but there's going to be some clarity issues. You got to clear up. You got to make sure that you're heard. You can't be afraid. The labels and the mirrors are really about clarifying information. If you're not sure what somebody just said, you use a mirror to get clarification. And people are scared to seek clarification often. I think principally because they're afraid it's going to make them look like they weren't listening. Where the other side, the impact is going to be they're deeply gratified that you're listening really closely and you're listening to understand. So you want to do your best to hear the other side out, but understand they're probably communicating imprecisely, and then clear it up. And then when you communicate clearly, but gently. A lot of times, I've heard the phrase clarity is violence. It's because when people are being clear, they could be delivering it in such a way that it just feels like blunt force trauma. Like the other side craves clarity, but, deliver it gently in your tone of voice, smile when you talk if you can. Your mindset when you're delivering clarity should be kindness, nurturing, being nice, whatever works for you to soften your voice. You could be more clear and more direct. And people's experience with being direct, having it used on them, felt like a brick in the face. So they're typically very cautious of hurting the other side with the words that are too blunt. And those 2 issues, an awful lot to be cleared up. Precision listening, precision communication. What's the myth? The myth about communication is that it took place. It's likely a little bit on both ends. And then the more you repeat back to what somebody says, the more they feel heard, which then begins to generate bonds. And even if you violently disagree, being able to repeat back to them what they said is always helpful, even if you violently disagree. And then that begins to draw people into a collaborative communication where they're working with each other to really get to the heart of the issue, whether it's a business deal, whether it's between a husband and wife, a parent and a child, whoever it's with. Collaboration is a key to success. And this is how you begin to be collaborative.
Do you think the idea, I've heard that a lot, the idea of mirroring or repeating back what the person said, is that because somewhere deep within us, it's that validation, that need for validation? As humans, it seems to trump many other needs. Like repeating, I always heard that also, repeating the person's name back to them. Do you find that that's a big piece, that need for validation when you're negotiating, or that mirroring plays a big part in negotiations?
Well, there's three really interesting parts to what you just said. I mean, there's the issue of the use of a person's name, there's the issue of validation, and then there's the definition of mirroring, what exactly it is and what it does. Mirroring in and of itself is a tool that's sometimes confused with body language mirroring or physical mirroring or voice mirroring, which is emulating the other side's body language or voice. And a black swan mirror is not emulating their body language or voice. For whatever reason, that's good or bad, it's different. So the black swan mirror is the repetition of 1 to 3-ish words. It usually, when you're learning the skill, starts with the last words, but it could be any words that pique your interest. Now, what does it do? Is it validation? I think validation, I don't know, I would get into a definition of validation, which seems ridiculous, but when I mirror you, it's clear that I got the words because I repeated them back. Now, if I mirror you with an upward inflection, then what I'm communicating to you is like, I got the words, I need a better explanation with different words. And so you feel, a sense of being heard and curiosity. So you'll expand, you'll add more words. Versus if I said, what did you mean by that? There's a really good chance that you're going to repeat the message with the exact same words, which isn't going to help me because with the words you used, I didn't get it. So the mirroring of the words triggers an expansion. It makes people feel listened to. It's ridiculously efficient from the user aspect. There's a fair number of people that we coach. They're in a minority, but there are a fair number that only mirror. Love mirrors. Love mirrors. And they work their way through entire negotiations only mirroring. And the way you get away with that is your inflection has to be of curiosity or comprehension. An upward curious inflection, inquiry, or I get it, comprehension. That's the key. And the last thing is I continue to ramble on. The name, that's a whole separate issue. And a person's first name is a precious commodity. Now, some overbearing salespeople weaponize a person's name and just hammer it with them over and over and over again. So you should know their name and you should use it. A lot depends upon how you got it. Did you offer your name first? Did they give you their first name in response? And then judicious use of the name because it is so personal and it has been used against them. You know, a timeshare salesperson coming up on me. Chris, how about this, Chris? Chris, how'd you like to stay in 5-star hotels? Chris, how'd you like to stay there, Chris? You know, and they're hammering me with my name. And so I know that you'll hustle right away if you're just beating me, weaponizing my name against me. So those are kind of the 3 points I wanted to cover. And great question.
I think of, dealing on the highest levels where you're dealing with terrorists and negotiating with them. What was it? Was it something in your childhood that you saw, some film or something that put you on the path? It's like, okay, I want to join the FBI and this is what I want to do. Many lives, life and death is at stake. What was the origin there?
I think I just wanted to have an impact on the world, and I think I wanted it to be fun and creative. I wanted to have a fun, adventurous life that mattered, that I made a dent in the universe. And those were probably the main guidelines. Originally in law enforcement, I envisioned, once I decided to get into law enforcement, which was about in my mid-teens, not till my mid-teens at all did I even think about it. I originally wanted to be on a SWAT team. And then the universe had other plans for me. And it kind of took SWAT away from me, which is some of the way, the best things in your life happen to you as a result of something negative. You realize the door got slammed shut or is about to, and you got to look for another door. So then I found myself pursuing hostage negotiation, and I loved SWAT, but hostage negotiation was far more gratifying than SWAT ever was.
When you're in that point of negotiation, is there, maybe obviously people don't see it because you go back to your training, is there fear going through you if you don't get the result, right? The result is what matters, saving the lives of people. Is there that sense, or you're more like process oriented in, I guess, because it does come down to communication. However, right? Because things could go sideways.
Yeah, well, you got to be process oriented. You got to have faith in a process. You got to lean into it. And then you got to accept at some point in life, like there's no system under any circumstances, under any human challenge that's foolproof, that's flawless. You just want what works the most. And so then if you do it enough, then something's going to go sideways. Hostage negotiators are successful slightly more than 90% of the time, which means there's a fair amount of them, based on our experience, have never had anything go wrong. So the first time something goes wrong, they think everything I touch works out. Like, well, if you've got less than 10 jobs, if you will, 10 incidents, the odds are in your favor. Once you start getting close to double digits, things are going to go bad, just because that's the universe. And then when that happens, how do you deal with it? How do you move forward? So I leaned heavily into a process early on. And then after a while, something went bad. And I realized, all right, so process isn't perfect. Now, do you get smarter? Do you get better? Post-traumatic stress growth or post-traumatic stress defeat? The difference between those two really is a choice.
I know you wrote the best-selling book, Never Split the Difference. And I have a personal story about that. What are your top 3 takeaways from that book for you that you want the readers to know about?
Really, the whole basis for the book, what made it different than any other book that the publishers had ever seen, was we weren't driving for yes. We're driving to don't get the other side to say yes, get them to say that's right. And you get the other side to say that's right by summarizing their side, their perspective, their story. Like if you could do that, you have no idea half the problems in your life are going to go away on the spot. Half. I promise you, half are going to go away on the spot. Now, some people are going to say, like, well, what about the other half? Okay, now you know what you got to focus on.
I always enjoy that. I think that from the president's perspective, he always says, and when he had Zelensky, I really like that. He talks about the cards. If you know going in that the other person just doesn't have the cards, you can just sit there and let them go on, but you have the end goal, right? You have the result. And in that, I enjoyed that idea of kind of changing perception before you get into the details of what's going to be happening. You kind of change the perception, because I remember I had an interview with a former CIA operative, and he said the greatest thing I ever learned was the difference between perspective and perception. So if you can be the leader of that kind of perception, then you know what the result is going to be. And I guess maybe that's part of the process of what you go through. You're not even, to the outside world, it probably looks like a negotiation. in your process and everything that you've trained, you probably know to, let's call it 70% certainty, 80% certainty, what the result is going to be, even though the outside world doesn't know that, just from your training.
Yeah, well, again, that's a rich question. There's a lot in there. So, and I'll separate out from whether or not you have the cards and whether or not you know what the outcome's going to be. So first of all, there's always a better deal. I could go into great depth as to why, but there always is, because there's always information the other side's holding back. That if we had this great collaborative, trusting relationship, we'd lay our cards on the table, and between the two of us, we'd create a better hand than either of us ever had. Now that's hard to do, because it requires a lot of vulnerability on your side. It requires understanding whether or not the person on the other side is somebody you could trust. By and large, trust is generally fairly well placed. How many people out there to really hurt you? Maybe 1 in 36, because that's the numbers on how many, the occurrence of sociopaths or psychopaths in our society, roughly about 1 in every 36 people, roughly. So 35 out of 36, you could trust them. Your real issue is sorting them out. Now, also in holding the cards, you might hold the cards today, but if you're clumsy and violent with that, what's going to happen to you when they hold the cards? And I really started thinking about this a lot. A friend of mine is Molly Bloom, author of Molly's Game, star of the movie by the same name. Highly recommend Molly's book and the movie. Really like her as a human being, fascinating, smart, insightful. And as she's managing poker games, on any given night, somebody can have the cards. And on any given night, somebody cannot get them at all. But the way you manage a poker game, the way Molly did, was keep the players even, because over the course of the year, everybody's got about the same amount of luck. So some days you're going to have the cards. And then internally you're going to say, I was skilled. I was good. And the days you don't have the cards, it's just not fair. This isn't a fair set of circumstances. But as time passes, these things even out. So if you're at the table with somebody who has the cards one day, or they have the cards on you, you guys are going to be at the table again in the future. And everybody's going to remember how it went last time. So that's one of the key issues, which I think is overlooked in how President Trump negotiates, because on the one-on-one deals, nobody's complaining about what it's like to deal with them. He talks about things in the media. There are a lot of external circumstances. The Zelensky thing is a great example, because in the Oval Office, which was the meeting, like a schoolyard meeting where you had kids around you taunting you, it went bad. But then Trump meets Zelensky, President Trump, forgive me if that was disrespectful, I'm sure it was, at the Pope's funeral, and they worked things out one-on-one. So his description of the negotiations, how he arranges the pieces away from the board, and then how he plays the game at the board, complement each other but are not the same.
I'm Moshe Popek, and I just want to say thank you, genuinely, for listening to Common Denominator. If you've been getting value from these conversations, if something sparked a thought, challenged your perspective, or helped you in your business or life, I have one small favor to ask. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. It might seem like a small click, but it makes a massive difference. Subscribing tells the platform that this content matters. It helps us reach more thoughtful listeners. It helps us book stronger guests. It helps the show grow. I think of things being an energy. And when you have, again, when I think about the board game, the chess game, when you have 50%, unfortunately, of just what it is, 50% of the nation not too fond of the president, you have that issue. And then you have the midterms coming up. And then tariffs, for example, just now, Supreme Court, supposed to be the highest court in the nation, making a law on tariffs, coming down with that, and then said, you know what, it doesn't apply to me. We're going to do this. We're going to do it this way, kind of like, the other way. What's the ripple effect of that? Because I think of me and myself in business. I'm in the real estate business. I think of, I've lost a lot of money just to try to keep reputation. He seems to not care so much about that, but I think every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and I'm not sure that that's what you've seen in your life, but that's what I've seen in mine. And I don't know if it matters in the results.
Well, I think the surprising thing about him, which is not really surprising, is like he says what he means. Like there's nothing he's tried to do that has caught anybody off guard. He's been telegraphing it all along, which by and large for a politician is crazy. We got a guy who's trying to actually back up his promises. Like everything he's laying out there, he talked about it being an issue and he's telegraphed it entirely. And we just haven't had presidents that have followed through with their campaign promises. So he's more interested in keeping his word than he is in people being mad at him for what he promised that he would do. And, the up and the down on any given moment, tariffs, what form the tariffs are, these again, this is the polling data of the moment. Now, I think he's clearly aware the midterms are coming up, and he's got a great instinct for timing and marketing. I think he's a brilliant marketer. So we'll see how it plays out. But to stick to his agenda, he's willing to incur the backlash of the moment. And, how they were going to do tariffs, how he's going to handle global trade, how he's going to level the playing field on those. And he's got a team of a lot of smart people around him that came up with a principal strategy and a backup plans. And he's clearly trying to kick the backup plans into gear. And if 2026 is anything like 2025, and it looks probably to be, the up and down roller coaster is, oh my God, the tariff situation has changed. And then, holy cow, it's working out really well. And it was, 2025 was up and down. For my company, 2025 was a good year. One of the least predictable up and down years that we've ever had. So I'm like, all right, it's a roller coaster. But yeah, he sticks to what he says more than anything else, more than any other president that I've seen in a long, long time. You might not like what he says, but he's sticking to it.
Yeah, I know, right, as CEO of the Black Swan Group, what would you say, and it makes sense because of all the unknowns in the economic sphere, that your services would be needed more in 2025. It makes sense because you can help kind of predict better where things are going. What is the common denominator, the misconception, or the thing that you find is most common as an issue that you have to work on in these Fortune 500 companies?
Yeah, well, still the negotiation methodology that we bring to the table, as soon as people buy in, they're making more money. And it doesn't matter what your approach is. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances. One of our clients, customers, long time, was really successful being a cutthroat negotiator, which is what a lot of people want to be. And he said, I've made so much more money being collaborative than I ever made being cutthroat. So if you're not negotiating with tactical empathy, number one, somebody you're dealing with is. The book has sold over 3 million copies domestic U.S., over 5 million globally. You're dealing with people that are using our methodology. Now, by and large, that's not a bad thing because it's highly collaborative, pointed at mutual prosperity, a better deal for both sides. So if you're vulnerable to them, so what? They're making better deals with you. You don't even know it. It's taking longer than it should because you don't know how it's working. But this is the best methodology, regardless of the tides of the economic times. It's the best navigation system there is. The tides of history are going to go up and down. You as a captain of your ship, you need the best navigation system for all the tides, and tactical empathy is. So the demonstration of understanding, hearing the other side out, finding out where they're coming from. There's a transactional lawyer that we're giving a negotiation award to next week. And he said, now I'm listening for the mutual aha moments that we both find to make the deal better. So that's going to survive the ebbs and flows, the tides of history.
I guess that they say people remember emotion. Maybe when you're both in the same point, it's like you're saying that aha creates that emotion and you feel that and you want to go back to that kind of good feeling. I know I'm constantly thinking about when I got into business and I figured out how I'm going to do the hardest work and make money last. So create that kind of win-win across the boards. That's when my results and everyone else around me, facilitator, everyone else around me, the compounding results in business started to compound. I'll do that. I'll create value and I'll make money easy for everybody around me and I'll make money last. So it's because everything wasn't working. I was suffering in different areas. And then that was the recipe that works. I'm constantly not thinking about me, but about the other person. Because I remember my mentor told me that most of the time, it's not about money. You just have to figure out what it is about.
Right.
The video game, right?
Yeah, no, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a while, many iterations. Like, why is this not working? And you just got to go super out in your mind because it's not about you. You just have to see, okay, that's where I got to go. I got to go there. In this world, it's only consistent results that people realize. They don't see anything else. They don't see the things in your mind and the brain. They don't really, it's just that. And if that isn't aligned with the other person, then it's good. That's what I found.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well said, actually. And going back to your comment, it's not about money. Like if there's a suit in a clothing store that you love, but doesn't fit, getting a discount on that suit doesn't make it fit.
What would you say is the key thing? Because same way nowadays, if someone's selling an item, they could sell it for $1, they could sell it for $2. What would you say is the idea why someone would pay that $2 over the dollar?
Well, if you got to convince them, it's probably not there. It's not going to stick. If you discover what they're after, because in discovering what they're after, what they really need, there's a really good chance that that's going to make more money for you. And on top of that, it was a better fit for them. So if you're charging a premium price, what are you getting for that? Is it effectiveness? Is it time saving? What is value? What is money? Time is money. Relationships are money. Your ability to accomplish things, that's money. Data is money. So what's somebody getting out of it? Are they saving time? Are they building better relationships? Or are they getting more information? This is where value lies and where premium pricing is worth it. Like my negotiation skills that I teach you are worth a lot only if you use them and use them as guided. Like if we're giving you a nutrition profile.
I really appreciate what you said about the buy-in. The people you're working with, that's a starting point. And you made a point to say that if they have buy-in, you're working with people, probably half the people are not willing, it may be more, to change their habits, to buy in to what you're saying. And then they ask you, how come it didn't work? Because they didn't do the action and the methodology that you showed them.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that. And I have a theory, going back to the beginning of the conversation, of the fear of clarifying, or I didn't understand that, or asking the questions, because in the school systems that we're in, I remember just because I would ask a lot of questions, I would end up in the principal's office all the time. So we're taught this is the book, this is what it is, this is the system, and you can't really ask questions during our formidable years. Respect the adults. They know better. Don't question anything. Constantly hearing that as a deep belief system.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The educational system, that's tough. Because it's a system built really to turn out mediocrity, which beats failure. Some people need structure. Some people need a system. I mean, you know, being a C student's better than being an F student or a D student. And it's by and large, it's not really designed to bring out the best in us as a rule. Occasionally we find teachers that, you know, you got a memorable teacher, they brought out the best in you. They saw something in you, they brought it out. But yeah, the system overall is not designed to produce excellence. And if you're questioning, yeah, it's not built for the I don't understand, I don't get this. So you were never built for mediocrity. You were,
but they punish that.
Yeah.
During your youth, and at least it should be neutral.
Yeah, you know, I don't know what the answer is. I can't help it. I'm a big follower of Daniel Pink. Follow him on Instagram. I love Pink. He's a great thinker. And one of his posts not that long ago, he's talking about at age 5, they test. You know, I'm paraphrasing roughly, but at age 5, like 90% of 5-year-olds tested out, they're going to be creative geniuses. And then as soon as they enter the educational system, those numbers start going down dramatically. So what do they do? What does the educational system do to them when at age 5, like 9 out of 10 were destined to be creative geniuses, and none of them were once they got through the system? That's scary when you think about it. Now, you were one of those. Somehow you scored it out the side without being destroyed, even though the number of times you got sent to the principal's office.
I think that point that you made about mediocrity, if in the one life that you have, that's the result that you want, then you have to follow the system. But the creativity, that is what our nature is actually. Being creative. Right? You're saying 9 out of 10, 90%.
And then
we're spending, 9%. Right? And then we spend our adult life in therapy to try to go back to our essence of who we were as children, right? Undoing all of the blockages of people that apparently that loved us, you know, and told us, shaped us. But that's each one of us have our own journey.
Yeah, the good news is that you can. Anybody can. You only have to believe that you can. And it's scary and it's frightening and you're out of your comfort zone. And that's where the acceleration happens.
I must, before we end this conversation, I really was inspired. There was I guess she grew up in San Francisco, the freestyle skier, 22-year-old. She studied at Stanford, a Chinese mother, and spent the summers with her grandmother in Beijing. And the comment that she made, an unbelievable shout out to her mom, that let her know exactly to your point, Chris, about kind of the neuroplasticity. You just have to believe. That she was saying that it's the level of belief, and then you just do it. And she's studying quantum physics, which is fascinating if you've gone into that, because it's not actually what goes on in the physical world. It's actually way, way, way beyond that. And at 22 years old, she said that, and she said, I'm the most decorated freestyle skier ever. I think she got 2 golds and maybe 3 silvers. Maybe that's what it was, as a freestyle skier at 22. Possibility of mind, of where you can go. And that's probably so much of the processes that you implement in your negotiation, deeply understanding yourself and deeply understanding who you're sitting in front of.
And just keep working at it. You know, just keep, no matter how good you are, there's more upside to whoever you are.
What would you say is the common denominator in a successful negotiation?
A positive collaborative attitude.
I like that you started that off with positive. So my brand is #positivity because the result will not happen if you don't have step one, the positive mind, because positivity leads for possibility and probability. Without that, if you're wired negative, then your internal dialogue will be negative and the ensuing result will be negative, will not be good. So that's why it's super important for that. And collaborative, two people aligned on the same page. Well, I want to say thank you, Chris. It's really been informative and great. Thank you so much for your time. It really means a lot.
Conversation was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I want to take a quick moment to say how grateful I am for you. The show is not possible without your support. Every download, every share, every subscription, it all adds up. And I don't take that lightly. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to Common Denominator. It truly helps more than you know. Thank you for being part of this community.